Okay, folks, I'm ready to put the dado saw blade in here, and it's a 1/4 inch dado. I've already cut a kerf into this zero clearance plate, and I'm going to insert this 1/4 inch dado blade into it like so, and I'll be able to put that on top of it once it's mounted. And here it is. It's just a box joint blade, so it's only 2 blades. It's not a full dado set, but it'll do 1/4 inch and 3/8 of an inch. So I'm using the 1/4. It says this side out for 1/4 inch box joints. So this is going to go. This is 2 blades that I'm holding at the same time on there. And all right, so now they're separated. Okay, so that's good. And I'm going to put this on there, and we'll put this nut on there. Get the wrenches out, and this one goes on here. This one goes on here. That's tightened up. Now, a dado blade on a saw stop table saw requires, a saw stop, the reason it's called saw stop is because if any flesh touches that blade as it's spinning, it's going to stop that blade instantly, drop it down below the surface of the table saw, all within a microsecond. And it rarely causes any damage to your skin. You may see a tiny little mark, but it won't be as bad as a pinprick. I mean, it'll just be just like that. So it's a very safe thing. Now, it ruins the blade and the brake. You'll have to buy a new brake. These are about 80 bucks a piece, and your blades could be that much too or more. But it's all good for the sake of saving your finger. So the problem is with the 8-inch dado set blades, it's not close enough to the brakes. You have to have a special brake that's a lot wider than the normal brake. So I'm going to take out the brake for the 10-inch blades. There's the locking pin that goes with it, and I take it off of there, and there's the brake. You can see how it's a smaller blade, and this thing's much larger in here. So I'll put this over here, and now I can put in the big one for the dado blade, for the smaller dado blade. All right. After several years of putting this thing on and off, I finally got the technique figured out, the quickest way to do that. And I can't tell you the secret because I can't explain it. But it works. We're not using a riving knife. We haven't used one the whole time because we haven't been doing any large rips or anything like that. So I'm going to drop. So I've lowered the blade below the throat clearance plate, and so now I'll raise the blade, make sure it comes through the hole properly. Perfect. So that's got a good zero clearance on all sides right there. I'm lowering the blade below it so that I can use this gauge to remember, this time we're cutting pins, so I need to measure the tail board. And so we'll get the thickness of the tail board, and I'm going to measure the thickness on top of this zero clearance plate right here. And the reason why is because I want it to be top dead center of this thing, so I don't want to move it once I start raising the blade up. So I'm looking to see if it's next to that line. Sure enough, it is. So I'll lock the, oops, I moved it. It's still next to the line, it's still above the tooth, so I'm in good shape. So now, it's on the blade. The dial indicator is always all the way at the bottom, which I could actually turn that. You know what, I can actually use that to put it right on it. So let me put a few pounds of pressure on this thing, and then use this indicator to come back down. So a few pounds of, that's too many pounds of pressure. I think that's perfect. Okay, so now take this away and start raising my blade up, and I've got to make sure the tooth is also top dead center. All right, the tooth is now moving the indicator so I can rub the tooth backwards and forwards until it's at its highest point right there. So that's it. And now I just need to move the needle over to this 0 right here. So I'm raising the blade about 3/1000ths away, 2/1000ths away. I gotta go to 1/1000th. I'm getting better at this. I used to always go too far and then had to back up and do it over again. But this is right on the money, right there. So now I can turn the magnet off, bring this over here, and put this away later. All right, so now just looking at that, it looks perfect with that tail. And now this is since these tails are cut on an angle this way, I've got to take the miter gauge and put it on an angle as well. And so here's the miter gauge. I've already got the dado version of the blade in here, and these are the ones I'm using. These are for the 10 degree, and I'm using these for the 7 degree right here. So I'll drop this blade down in here, and then I'll move the gotta loosen it up a little bit. Move this over, and I got to change it to 7 degrees. This is where I need to use the vernier scale. The vernier, vernier scale. So I'm going to go to the low side, which means I'm going to pull it back this side. So this is the low side. This is the high side. So I'm putting it on the low side. I put it close to 7 degrees, and then I look at the vernier indicators on both sides to see if they match up with that, and that tells me that I'm right on 7 degrees that direction. It looks good. So all I need to do now is make sure that this blade, and I've got an L marked for the low side here, so I'm going all the way over to this curve. So I'm in between both curves. Now I can tighten up, or I'm in between both teeth. The teeth closest to the right side, the teeth closest to the left side. Neither one of them are touching the sides of this thing. These backer boards get sloppy at some point, and so that closes through there just fine. I've got this little stop that I'll use again, and I'm going to put my board right here. And by the way, I'm going to mark on here low and high with my pencil. Because it's easy to forget. So this is the low side, L, and this is the high side. H, L, H. So you see I've marked that, and this reminds me I have not put my kerf marks down on here. I need to do that. And since the cameras have moved, I'll do it over there. And to get this right, I need to take the measurement off of the tail board. That's a satisfying drop. Make my mark, tighten it down. So now everything in between the pins, there's 1, 2, 3 pins in here, and I'm gonna put a mark just between the pins. So I'll put the gauge right on here, and I'll roll it up to where it's just at the edge of that pin. Yep, that looks good. And then now I can come forward a little bit and roll the rest of the way to where I'm just on the edge of that. Come the rest of the way. Roll till it just comes. It's not quite far enough yet. There, that's perfect. So you see I've just put the marking gauges down where the waist is going to be. So let's get this up here close to where we want it, where the blade will still turn, but we can still see the kerf. Move this up. All right, and that's on the low side. And everything's going to be done from the front side. We won't need to turn it around like we did the tail board. Everything's going to be done from the front side. So here's what I'm going to do. Now we're going to be watching from this camera up here. And I've got the edge of a tooth, the left edge of a tooth right here. And I'm going to move this board over till it touches it. Go up a little bit more. All right, so I've got a nice positive touch. I'm not pressing hard, but it's definitely touching the edge of that. Put my clamp on there. Alright, so it's touching the edge of that. So now I'll be able to cut that low side of the pin after I turn on my saw blade. So we've got one more low side over here. I'll say it again. We've got one more low side over here. So we've got 2 cuts on the low setting. I need to do the same thing. Pull over to this. Touch the edge of the blade on that side of the pin. Clamp it down. Now I'm ready to cut. And so you can see that first cut. There's the pin. I'll show you from the top in just a minute here. The reason I unclamp it before I bring it back is I don't want it marring up anything. So you can see just from the rake of those pins. So the pin is This is one side of a dovetail, there's the other side of the dovetail. We've yet to cut this side, but to cut that side, I've got to cut the other angle, which means I got to put it in the high position. So I'm 7 degrees back like this. I'm going to go 7 degrees forward like this. So low, high. And that's what I'm doing. I'm switching over to the high side. I need to move my stop, loosen this up, find 7 degrees on the other side of the 0, use my vernier scale to make sure it's dead on. I don't have a positive stop using this pen for the 7 degree. I do for the 10, so that prevented me from having to do that. And I'll put my board here temporarily. And put my stop back in. And I've got it back far enough to where the blade's not going to touch it. But I need to move it forward to register the right side of this against that pin right there on the high side. So I could hear it touch. It's got a nice solid reference there. Clamp that down. All right, that's good. Do the same thing. Testing 1, 2. I've got one more high side to do, and then we can waste out the rest of the area beneath that. I should have done the wasting with the low side, a little bit of the wasting with the low side while I was still there. But, so now I'm going to have to reset the low side angle, but no big deal. Okay, it turns out I was able to do all the wasting from that same high side angle because I'd already cut a 1/4 inch off, and it wasn't going to touch. I couldn't see on the backside whether I'd be cutting into that, and I took a chance and it wasn't. So the pins are done. We're now ready to find out whether the moment of truth comes, whether we can get it to fit nicely or not.